What's up, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So this week I have a very exciting video for you because another YouTuber has asked me if I want to collaborate with him in a video, and that YouTuber happens to be Nate's Films Tutorials. Now, if you've never ran across his channel before, I would highly suggest it because he has a really wonderful library filled with informational videos, and my personal favorite is the one where he does a self-imposed challenge where he has to light a location within 5 minutes. So thank you so much, Nathan, for inviting me into this collaborative video. And without further ado, this is a long one, so we're just gonna jump right into it. Here is our conversation where we talk about our own personal top tips for the absolute beginning filmmaker, and watch it all the way through, and I will see you guys at the end of the video.
Tell me a little bit about yourself for those who may not know your channel or just you as a filmmaker. Go ahead and describe yourself.
All right. Well, my name is Jason. I run the channel TLDR Filmmaker, or known as Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker. And pretty much my channel, I like to give you the answers right away first, and then I'll go into my reasonings. But I like to make sure that everyone is gaining some value. So my tagline is answers first, reasons last, but we're always still learning. And in terms of my filmmaking, I've been a serious filmmaker for pretty much the last, I would say, maybe 4 to 5 years. Up until then, I dabbled with video, but I wasn't serious. So I consider myself, having been a filmmaker for about 5 years. And shot my first feature, which was really awesome. And then I've worked on a couple other features since.
Nice. So what kind of movies are you doing?
A lot of the films that I dive in deal with action, whether it be martial arts action or military action, and that's pretty much the genre of films that I love to watch.
Okay, nice. And where can someone go to see your movie or watch your movie?
Well, it's actually on Amazon, so if you type in Project E1337 Alpha, it should show up.
Nice. And what's the reason behind the name?
There's a lot of throwbacks in terms of there's a lot of video game references all hidden within the film.
Okay.
And Project 1337 is a little fun way people used to type, and it basically spells out LEET. So if you put E in front of it, it technically spells out Project Elite.
Okay, I did not know that. I didn't realize. Wow.
Yeah,
that's
no, a lot of people have said why in God's green earth would you name a film like that? That's so hard to remember. And I said, because the people who get it will get it, and those are my target audiences. So,
true.
So that's why I named it as such.
Very nice. Okay.
Well, Nathan, how about you? Tell us about your channel.
All right. So basically, my goal is to make concise filmmaking tutorials, and hopefully in an informative and even humorous way sometimes. I'm trying really to share my personality through my YouTube channel, and I hope that it can be a behind-the-scenes library and document the growth of a filmmaker. Slowly, I just kind of been sharing what I know, what I've learned, and what would be beneficial in a very concise and entertaining format.
Well, very, very cool. Well, this is a really fun collaboration video that we're about to do.
Yes, it is.
Seeing as we're both coming from very different times in our development as a filmmaker,
True.
I think you saying, hey, we should do a collaboration video about what we believe are our top tips for absolute beginning filmmakers that want to get started. I think our answers are going to be pretty interesting. So I'm pretty excited.
I am too.
All right. Well, why don't you kick it off first? What is your first tip?
All right,
for an absolute beginner?
Yeah, probably the number one tip I could give a filmmaker is to have the right attitude. Filmmaking can take a lifetime to master, so you're probably just not going to wake up and be Spielberg within a year. It's going to take time to learn how to just everything with filmmaking. It's a bunch of different roles, so you're going to need to take the time to learn each aspect. And the other part of having the right attitude is just to be respectful, because chances are anyone who's making a film probably has some level of passion for it. I think it's a really hard job to kind of not really want to do it. Like, you have to have some sort of passion behind it. The other thing is to receive criticism. This is probably a big point. It's going to be really helpful to be able to take constructive criticism. And I would say you need to be open to that, as it would be like helpful to learn just what people liked or what they didn't like about it. I would say it's very helpful to have a friend or two that are somewhat interested in video or filmmaking, and they would be brave enough to just give you very blunt work. And you can do the same with them. If you have like a little, maybe just a friend or two, you know, it doesn't have to be this huge community, but it's like, hey, this is my work. Tell me what you think about it. And to be honest, because that's going to be really helpful. You may have a few friends like, oh yeah, it's really good, but you know, that doesn't really help when you need some really strong advice.
Yeah.
The last thing I would say, there are boundaries to that. So just don't like accept everything. You kind of need to have your own point, which I think you'll begin to understand as you move along. If someone doesn't like it, then why? If they just didn't like it because it wasn't their style, their flavor, then that's not really anything to really hugely pay attention to. But if it's someone who's very passionate about that and they have some very good points, yeah, you need to kind of listen to that. And then it's up to you to decide whether you're going to use that or not.
No,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can keep going if you got one more.
Okay. I got one more. Yeah, I just realized here. And that would be, this is like a kind of a bonus tip already, is to discuss your ideas. Because the more you talk about your project, there's going to opportunities that are going to arise in places where you didn't think there would. You know, you might be talking to your brother, your family, your friends, and like, hey, I really want to do this film. You may have no idea how you're going to actually do it, but by talking about it, like, oh, I have a location that would be great for that. My aunt has a restaurant. We can actually have access to that. Then you can like sort of build ideas from that. And it can be stuff like that for production, or just like even little advice here and there.
Yeah. No,
what do you think about that?
That's a really good first tip, I would say. Like it's so different from my first tip, but I definitely agree that attitude is almost everything, and it goes a long way. And I love that you talk about from both sides of it. So like when you said receiving criticism in terms of what is your attitude to receiving it, but also you also said be respectful, because obviously if you're going to give it back, you know, this whole attitude thing is what do you say, a two-way street. You can't just like be one or the other. You have to do both. And I think also just the idea of the attitude, obviously it's like, I think you just have to have this open mind and learning attitude, like absorb everything, because when you're a beginner for a reason, because you don't actually know these, you know, things. So you just really have to absorb a lot of stuff and kind of just, in a sense, maybe place ego aside. I don't necessarily know if you would have an ego being a beginning filmmaker, but you know, you just have to hear everything. And then the more experiences you have from learning and hearing ideas, I think that's when the magic happens, is once you've heard a lot of things, you can start picking out what stuff resonates with you, what stuff works for you, and then from there you begin developing your unique style of filmmaking. And you know, if you don't open yourself up to learn, you're not going to figure out what makes you special as a filmmaker.
Exactly, and I completely agree with that.
That's a really good first tip.
Thank you. Mr. TLDR Filmmaker, what is your first beginner filmmaking tip?
Well, my beginning filmmaking tip kind of goes on the idea of just go shoot something, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific about what it is that I believe you should start shooting first.
All right.
And I think that everybody has one thing that they're good at or that they're capable of doing. So let's say you're awesome at cooking, all right? Okay. And I would say if you want to start learning how to develop your filmmaking skills, I think the best thing is to film more or less a step-by-step process of you cooking maybe one of your favorite dishes. And the challenge is I don't want you to tell the viewer what it is you're adding. So, you know, don't say, oh, add a tablespoon of salt, put some ginger powder in there, something, something. I don't want you to say it, I want you to show it. Okay. So I believe this tip is going to basically force you to start thinking, how can I make this interesting? And I'm actually gonna send you some videos, because a lot of my short films in the Christmas specials that I do, there's a couple of them each year where I'm actually cooking something. And in one year, I basically showed the entire recipe without ever saying it. And people were telling me, oh, so that's how you cook your fried rice. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I cook it. So they knew exactly what the ingredients were. They knew how much I put into it. And, you know, and I shot it in various ways. So I think as a very beginner, I would tell them to work on this skill, because at the end of the day, if you're showing a movie, you're showing a sequence of images, and that is your main story medium. Yeah. So I think this is the best way for you to start developing your skill, is to film something that you already know how to do and see if you can make something interesting. You can throw some comedy bits in it. Maybe you want to make this funny. So the person is doing everything, but maybe they spill the rice all over the floor. And now that person has to sweep it up. And then after they're done cleaning everything, they can continue. So there's a moment where you can add these little story elements into it. You don't have to do it so dry where you're just filming it step by step. You can add some fun into it. And ideas like this is what's gonna make you try to find moments as you develop as a filmmaker to make a story more interesting or more funny or more serious, what have you.
Exactly. I begin to like see ideas like the guy sweeping up the rice and just pours it directly into the boiling pot.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Like something like that.
So ideas are coming and you get to see like a new perspective, and you're trying to make it funny. You're trying to make it entertaining. Mm-hmm. That's what filmmaking is.
Yes.
I think that's a really good point, because you're showing and not telling, which a lot of filmmakers say, and you probably have heard by now, is show, don't tell. And that is really powerful, especially for beginning, because there's a lot of telling in very beginning short films, telling as they're doing. And sometimes it's just more interesting to see what people do and have their emotions come off as being what you understand. If you pay attention to movies, a lot of them are not saying exactly what they're intending, but you get to see that and you feel it, and you almost like are there with them. All right, so for my second beginning filmmaking tip is to understand the basics of filmmaking. So learn both the technical and the creative side of filmmaking. Know how to use your camera, know how to capture good audio, learn how to compose and frame, and the whole wide yard of filmmaking. This is kind of like tying into it, because you need to have an understanding of how gear works to a certain degree, because later down the road, when you don't have, or like even as you're making your film, you may not have all the necessary equipment to make a good looking movie. But if you understand how I can capture good audio by getting the microphone close, then you can use your iPhone or something to record audio, and it's going to sound and look better and overall up your production value. And then later down the road, you come across where you're maybe doing a commercial or working for a client, and something comes up and you don't have the right gear or things to do it. Rather than spending a bunch of money and kind of washing down your problem, you can solve it creatively. So you can know like, okay, well, I know the fundamentals of how lighting works. So technically we can make it work. I can just have like a cheap softbox. I don't need anything huge, and I can make it look good. When you wash down your problems with money, you get a solution that's very bland and kind of like other Hollywood films. But when you can do it in a creative and less expensive way, you get something new, and which is interesting and exciting.
Yes.
I believe that's from Robert Rodriguez's book, Rebel Without a Crew.
Yeah. I think it is. I believe it. No, and that is a very, very powerful tip, I have to say, because I'm gonna maybe get back into the elementary days, if you will, as if you're learning, because, you know, there's always that arts and crafts class back in elementary school. And when you're that young, you're introduced to a pencil, pen, colored pencils, crayons, markers, Sharpies, highlighting markers. So, you know, all these things are completely different, but they all do the same thing, which is to mark up a piece of paper or mark up a poster board in some fashion. And I'm almost willing to bet that if you go back and think about it, you had a favorite tool out of those not utensils, but, you know, one of those things. Like I loved using pens because it was smooth to write. It didn't have that scratchy feeling of a pencil when you were drawing with it. I loved the smoothness of it. So I know that's like very basic to think about and probably doesn't make sense, but going back to your tip, like that's what it is. You need to understand what these tools can do, what they're capable of, because, you know, obviously I'm not going to use a pen and marker for everything. In certain cases I should be using a pencil, in some other cases I should be using a highlighter. And it's because I understand that a highlighter allows me to highlight pieces of text without completely blackening it out or coloring it out.
Yeah.
You know, that is why I would choose that tool and use it. So
it kind of boils down to just like, even just equipment wise, like in the lens, you know, choosing a shallow or a deep depth of field for your story, little things like that. And I think you're right about, you kind of have a preference and you begin to understand, oh, I really like the look of a 50 millimeter or maybe a 24 millimeter might be good for this shot. That's really powerful to see and train your eye to how that works. Very nice. When
you say, like, don't just use money to solve a problem, try to see, can you do it in a different way? Is there another way you can achieve what it is you were going for? Because that's where not just creativity, but I also want to say like innovation. I think innovation also comes with that, because then you might develop a technique that you suddenly worked way better than you ever thought it would. And now you have this under your belt as a skill set to essentially smooth out future productions. So when you just throw money at a problem, you're not really developing yourself as a creative. Yeah.
That's powerful, really powerful.
Well, my next tip actually kind of coincides with yours, and that is try not to fixate on one thing. Because if you guys listen to Nathan's previous tip, you know, there's cameras, there's sounds, there's lenses, there's lights, there's a lot of things you need to understand and learn as you develop. But I want to say that some filmmakers, when they start, they fixate on one thing. And it could be anything. I don't necessarily know what everyone fixates on, but if you fixate on one thing for too long, you start to get tunnel vision and you don't realize how other things affect what it is that you're fixated on. So, you know, for example, let's say you really love lenses or cameras. Let's just say cameras and lenses. So you really focus on your skill set and you really learn the ins and outs of cameras and focal lengths and all that stuff. But by doing so, you're forgetting that lighting is a very important part of how your camera operates. If you don't have light, then your camera doesn't see anything. And I think when you continue developing your skills, you're going to suddenly realize that filmmaking is essentially a car. It's a car that's filled with so many things that all have to work together to make the car move forward. If you only focus on one part of the car's not going to move. So I think as you develop, you just need to you just don't want to fixate on one thing, and you want to try to be aware of as many things as possible. And I don't mean that you have to try to fixate on all of them. Just know that they exist, know that it's important, and then as you develop into an intermediate filmmaker, you can start maybe specializing in one of them. But as a beginner, I think you should have a really good understanding of everything. So don't just fixate on one part of filmmaking. Try to listen to everything.
Yeah, I agree. And you could even take this into a broader perspective. Let's say you're only focusing on cinematography. Well, how does that affect your script writing or your acting or directing? I would say even acting, because you at least need to have a fundamental understanding of how or what the actor is going through. That would be helpful.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes just jump around like, okay, how do I improve audio now? Like, I'm interested in audio for a segment, you know, just like a little session of my life. I'm like, okay, well, how does audio work? How does lighting work? And yeah, lighting is, I think, more fascinating than probably lenses, because you can sculpt and create character and mood. The lens, they all essentially work the same, you know?
Yeah.
So
yes, they do.
yeah, like, and you could put a kit lens with good lighting, and it's gonna look decent. And that's where, like, when a lot of people talk about, oh, I need a good low light camera. Probably not. You're probably like, it'd be useful for your camera to go up to like 1600 ISO. Rarely do you ever go above that. And pay attention. A lot of these cameras that you've seen your famous movies and all that stuff on, all the movies you like, those cameras probably didn't go above ISO 400.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really need to go above that. And just learn how to light. And lighting is so much cheaper. You can pick up a can light with an LED bulb for like $14.
Yeah.
And you can practice with that. You can pick up another light and you have two lights. And I would say just focus on one light. If you look at a lot of movies, they're just basically using one light and just kind of modifying it almost. And my third filmmaking tip would be is to be an idea collector and look at life and other art. If you're going to be a filmmaker, you're going to need to be an idea collector first and foremost. You need to start paying attention to people's conversations, how people talk. I think once you do that, you really see people don't get to the point in conversations. They kind of like go around that, maybe hint it, and there's all like, sometimes people repeat themselves. And with a movie, you're not necessarily want an actual conversation, but you want to mimic a conversation. So you can have those flaws of reality, like people talking over themselves, or maybe someone interrupts the conversation, so the person that originally was about to say something does so at a later time. And that can be a powerful tool as well. It's just like learning how dialogue works. That's just only one aspect, is dialogue. But take photographs. A lot of times I just go out and I'm just looking for compositions, and it just kind of happens intuitively. And I just take up my photos on my phone. I mean, I don't have the camera around with me, and the phone just a lot more convenient. And you're able to learn how to compose and frame, look at negative space, eliminating all like the distractions, and focusing on what you want the viewer to see. And share them on Instagram or whatever your favorite photo sharing platform is. And hopefully people like kind of get inspired by that, and at least you can see your growth and how you're sort of paying attention and learning your style. So photography is a big one. And then when you have ideas, or when ideas come around, capture them, write them down. I use my notes on my phone a lot. I'd write this little idea I've come to mind, and I probably would look back and like, what the heck is this? Like, it's so vague, but it at least brings that thought back, like, oh yeah, short film ideas, little ideas here and there, and start collecting those ideas. And then hopefully down the line, you can actually use that stuff. Maybe you won't, but it's worth collecting those ideas.
No, that is, that's a really wonderful beginning tip, because, you know, I want to say a lot of people, when they are a beginner and they go into it, you know, a lot of them is like, well, what do I do? Or what can I do?
Yeah.
And
what can you practice by yourself is a big thing.
And I almost want to say, like, this is a perfect training for you as a creative, to have your ears and eyes constantly open. And when you pay attention and then you write it down, or you maybe snap a photo of it because you have your phone with you or what have you, just allowing yourself to be aware is going to go a long way. And very similar to what you said, like normal conversations, people will probably interrupt you, or some big noise happens and everyone stops their conversation to go look at what just happened. There's so many of these little moments that you actually go through every day and you might not be aware of it. But I think when you open your sensory or your senses to these things, you're gonna develop a lot of very unique ideas in the future. And I think that's a really wonderful tip to tell people to just really be aware of this stuff.
I think it has kind of its flaws too. I don't know if you ever do this, but ever since I paid attention to lighting, I tend to favor soft lighting, and I cannot stand overhead lighting. I always leave them off. It's like, I hate the look, like this nasty tungsten color. So I'm like, I flip up my softbox just to read from that because it's much more pleasant. And I guess like that's kind of the flaws. Like you're kind of like tuned. I heard Philip Bloom, I believe he said, when he goes into restaurants, he's always looking for the soft quality of light, or the most cinematic lighting to sit by, just intuitively.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, it's really crazy how that kind of impacts your life in a way. But I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see like how people actually even light up a restaurant. Like Philip Bloom, like he goes searching for the most cinematic setup. That's actually, again, here you go, being open and aware of your senses and what you see, and you learn from it.
Exactly. And I think it kind of is like, it's a way of entertainment. Instead of just being on your phone, just take a few minutes to be like, okay, just look around. I mean, people do this all the time. Writers, all the time. They sit at a coffee shop because they have like these ideas that start coming to them. Yeah. I guess that leads on to your next tip.
Last final tip, actually.
Last tip.
I wasn't planning on this one, but you know,
you were?
No. But having this conversation did spark this last tip I would give a beginner. And it actually ties back to your very first one, having the right attitude. And I would say you can do it. That's literally what I want a beginning filmmaker to understand. You can do it. There's never been a better time to be a filmmaker, and people have heard this everywhere. But at the same time, I still feel like beginners put some sort of doubt that they can't do it. And part of it could be like, oh, I don't have money to do it, or I don't have actors to do it, I don't have this, I don't have that, and they find reasons to not pursue what could be a passion. And I get it, because you know, mentally, for you to jump into anything that's new, even if you are passionate for it, is kind of a scary thing. It's very scary. But I want you to not be scared of it. And going back to Nathan's first tip, having the right attitude. There's nothing that you can do at this level that's going to hurt you. You're not going to...
I mean, you can't. You can't like ruin your filmmaking career if you haven't
started. Exactly. You can't ruin anything if you're at this point. And you know, technology has been a very wonderful thing. The fact that we're doing this on YouTube right now and trying to tell you guys these tips. There's so many videos on our channels where we talk about, you know, principles of filming and lighting and all these different things that we've learned that you can readily watch and learn on your own at your own time. You're not graded on it, so don't worry. Like, you're not gonna get a bad grade if you fail. Literally, don't be afraid. You can do it. There's not been a better time for you to try these new things. So take that attitude with you. If something doesn't work, then, you know, part of your development and having the right attitude is listen to criticism. Somebody might tell you why it didn't work, and you can listen to that and learn from it. And as you continue to make mistakes, you're going to become better and better. In fact, the more mistakes you make, the better you become. As weird as that sounds, make mistakes. especially right now, because again, your mistakes don't actually matter. It's not going to affect your career. It's not going to affect anything. You're just simply learning from it.
Yeah.
So that's my final tip. You can do it. Just go, don't doubt yourself.
Amen to that. I mean, like a lot of people I talk with, they're like, have some sort of interest in starting a YouTube channel. And I would say like, we're no different. Like,
No.
You and me, we just decided, okay, I just think we're going to try it. At least we're going to start it. It is hard.
Yes.
There's going to be challenges. And I talked with Jason. It's kind of emotional kind of a journey because you're talking to a camera and you're making videos and you're kind of picking up on these statistics as your feedback almost, but you have to try to, avoid that. So it's definitely difficult, but you can do it. I mean, it's going to take time, like we all said.
Yeah.
But like, at least give it a shot. I mean, put as your effort into it and at least see what can come from that. And definitely, both us, we're still small creators, but I would say it's a success to have this many people who click that subscribe button.
Yeah.
I know how difficult it is for me to subscribe, or like at least what needs to happen before someone subscribes. And I'm just incredibly thankful that someone subscribed to my channel.
No, I am
and actually
too.
taking to that.
And just to run this case home of what I'm saying about like you can fail and still learn. Guys, this is my third attempt on YouTube. Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker. Like this is my third branding of a channel. So I've tried 3 times. And I failed at something in the first 2 times and it made me stop, and I went on and did other things and I came back. So
yeah,
I learned.
Even if you do fail, you come back and do it.
Yeah. So
I would say just if anyone who really wants to start a YouTube channel, it is going to take time, and you're going to probably be under 100 subscribers for a very long time. But the cool thing about YouTube is it's a snowball effect.
Yes.
And once you each time you put out a video, it's going to get better than from the first time you start.
Yeah.
And this is what I always carry with me is like, I'm better off today than I was yesterday. So I might as well keep going, And incredible things happen from that, and it's definitely worth it if it's something you really want to do.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know. Is that a topic that you guys would want to hear at some point? Is like maybe we'll have a YouTube
exactly
discussion section. If that's the thing, then definitely let us know. Because again, we're both relatively small creators, but at the same time, like
have some sort of success.
Yeah, have some sort of little success. And honestly, again, with what Nathan said, like I feel blessed too that you guys will hit a subscribe button and want to watch. And because of that, I want to continue. I want to continue making some kind of content for you to enjoy and gather information and learn from. And I know, Nate, you're definitely also doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, if that's some kind of topic that you guys want us to talk about in the future,
Definitely.
or maybe any other sort of topics at all, leave it in the comment section. We'll read it. And
I got a whole lot to say about YouTube.
Oh yeah, it's a very interesting topic for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we can talk forever about it.
Yeah.
Well,
all right. So I think it wraps it up there, unless you have anything else you want to add.
Learn. Just keep learning. I'm not going to say answers first, reasons later. I'm just going to say just learn.
Yeah. Just learn.
Learning is a lot of fun, and especially in this filmmaking medium, because there's so much to learn, and each one makes your film more exciting to create. So, yeah, just keep learning.
I think that's a perfect way to end it.
All right. Well, thank you, Nathan, so much for this collaboration. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been, and I'm really glad we got to do it. And thank you for joining me and help sharing your filmmaking knowledge to our audiences. And hopefully they'll be inspired.
Awesome.
All right, guys. So I will see you guys later. And Jason, I will probably talk to you later.
All right. See you all later. Bye.
See ya.
And hey, that is it for our very first collaborational video, everybody. I want to thank Nathan again for not only inviting me to do the collaborational video with him, but for him to also do the editing of our entire conversation. So I'm going to ask you guys one more time, is this something that's interesting to you? Do you want to see more videos like this in the future? And if so, what kind of topics would you like us to cover? Definitely let me know down in the comments below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And also check out his channel, like and subscribe, because he's got a lot of great stuff there and you don't want to miss it. So without further ado, guys, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.